record. All right, good evening, everybody. Tonight we have a very special and highly anticipated guest. You see here, Rabbi Wolf. We've met Rabbi Wolf before. He's, of course, the Dean of Cheder Lubavitch. He shared with us during Yontif time when we were preparing for Yontif about what it was like to be Yontif with the Rebbe. And at that time, I said to Rabbi Wolf, we want you to come again. And he immediately agreed, which we were so appreciative of, but we didn't anticipate at Rosh Hashanah time that we'd be asking him to come and speak about his trip to Eretz Yisroel. This is what's on everybody's mind, what's going on in Israel. We can't get enough of the news and the details. And a lot of fact and fiction get often intertwined as a result of a variety of factors. So what better way than to get from someone who has just literally returned from a rabbinic delegation that was Rabbi Wolf's initiative. He's too humble to tell you that it was his idea. And I asked him, and he immediately agreed, and we appreciate that, to join us and share with us his experience. So Rabbi Wolf, first of all, welcome back. You're probably saying V'sein Talamutter now because you were in Eretz Yisrael for Zion Cheshvan. But we're not here to discuss the halachas of davening. We're here to hear about your trip to Eretz Yisrael. So take us to the beginning. What prompted this trip? How did you arrange it? Just the logistics. How can you get to Israel now? Are the flights going? And who was in your group? And then please share some pictures, some stories, and help us understand from real, firsthand, facts on the ground experience in Eretz Yisrael.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Epstein, for giving me this opportunity to share with your listeners about our trip, the experience that I had. And it all started as soon as Simchas Torah was over. And if you recall, we had a conference call of the Shluchim of Illinois, and we felt that we had to do something. And I suggested perhaps organizing a trip to Israel. And the purpose of the trip would be to uplift the people, inspire people, see on the ground what is going on, see how we can be of assistance. At the same time, we knew that we would have to come with some resources, funds, and whatnot. And the following several days, there were several meetings going on with shluchim throughout the United States. And a group was formed, and finally a group of 28, which included shluchim from across the country, the United States, as well as one from Canada, and one that would be joining us from Australia. So we had a group of 28 shluchim. The purpose of the trip became clearer as time went on, that we have to come with a lot of supplies. The information that we received from Israel, from the group that was helping us with our itinerary, with giving us some ideas, and working together with Sahal to make sure that when we arrive, we have the security and we have what we need. And so the schedule was basically worked out between ourselves and Tzirei Agudas Chabad in Kfar Chabad. And one of the things they told us was that usually when they try to mobilize troops in Israel, if there's something going on, a military situation, they usually get about 70 to 80% of responses. This time, due to the gravity of the situation, they had 150%, which means even those that were not called, the reservists, were all called, obviously, but even those that didn't have to serve volunteered to serve, and they took everyone. So there is obviously a shortage of helmets. There was a shortage of bulletproof vests. There's a shortage of first aid kits, a shortage of everything you need when it comes to going out to war. It's anticipated that there may be injuries, and therefore you need, a lot of health, a lot of supplies, medical supplies, and so on and so forth. And we were told that there's a tremendous, tremendous shortage of that. So between the 28 of us, we made sure to, I know that in Chicago itself, between the Shluchim in Chicago. You had Wilmette, which collected a lot of supplies from people who were donating various supplies. And they had duffel bags full of supplies, clothing. And the same thing was done with all the other shluchim that came from throughout the United States. There were literally several hundred suitcases and duffel bags full of everything you can think of, clothing, toys for children, and so on and so forth. And as we go along, you'll see why all of that was needed. So the purpose of the trip became clear. We had an itinerary which included visiting those that were convalescing in the hospitals, even the intensive care units. They would allow us in, and that was worked out with the medical field in Israel. We were going to visit military bases. Some were sensitive, some not as sensitive, as I will explain as we go on. And we were going to visit some homes that are sitting Shiva. I'd like, before I begin, just to mention that, we have heard so much. CNN, MSNBC, and, Fox News, everyone listens to various programs of what is going on, news services. And so what I'm going to try to do is begin with a certain analysis of what we walked away with, giving you some clarity what is going on in Israel, and then telling you about the places we have visited. We're not necessarily going to describe graphically what people have told us, because a lot of it is known, and perhaps it's not proper at this time of the evening to go into details of that nature, because we all basically know what was going on. It was literally a Holocaust, and worse than the Holocaust. And so I'm going to stick to giving you a bit of an analysis, and then where we visited and what we found, and so on and so forth. Regarding the analysis that I would like to give you this evening is soldiers, young and old, reservists, ones that are currently serving, whether it's some generals that we met or other people, politicians, they all have one thing to say. There will not be a second chance. We must eradicate the Hamas. Otherwise, this will be repeated again and again. And no one wants to repeat this again and again. So basically, across the board, the feeling is, regardless of the pressures that we will have from the United States or our so-called allies, we must eradicate Hamas and the whole Gaza Strip, whatever it takes, because otherwise we can have another, God forbid, another Holocaust again, and no one wants to go there. Everyone fully understood and understands that this war may broaden into a regional war. Yet the resolve is that we got to do what we have to do, and if it spreads into a regional war, we're going to have to address it as a regional war and do what we have to do. In addition to all that, there was a situation that developed, and that is refugees, Jewish refugees. All the kibbutzim, the settlements across the southern border, which basically means facing Gaza, as well as the northern border facing Lebanon, which today we're talking already about close to 500,000 refugees. It's literally unbelievable how many refugees we have, and that includes families with children and so on and so forth. Now, the reason for this taking so many people and moving them into the center is not so much because of the rockets, because you're having rockets basically everywhere. True that the ones that are more to the north facing Lebanon and the ones that are more to the south facing Gaza are getting the brunt of it. But throughout the United States, throughout Israel, there are bombs everywhere. But the main reason for taking these people and bringing them to the center of the country is they're literally scared for a repeat of people getting through the borders, especially with Hezbollah. We're not sure where this is heading. And therefore, people were evacuated to the center of the country. And that has a lot of problems that comes with it. What do you do with the education of children? What do you do with even places of like synagogues and people from the 500,000 or close to it? You have a majority that were relocated into hotels. The hotels where we were staying, there are 275 rooms in the hotel. Other than our 15 rooms, the balance of the hotel, they took the refugees coming from Kfar Maiman, which is 2-3 kilometers from the Gazan border. Men, women, children came with suitcases, duffel bags, and they parked. The government is paying for the hotel, and they're all staying in the hotel. So there's a refugee problem. But then I would like to point out something that Israel has never, ever seen before. And that is a spiritual, for no better word, a spiritual revival. Wherever we went, there are currently now approximately 1,000 tefillin stands throughout the country. People began putting on tefillin. People began observing mitzvahs. Women lighting Shabbos candles. Thousands of Shabbos candle kits have been distributed throughout the country, literally in an unbelievable way. We thought we're going to come to Israel and we're going to bring the Rebbe's message. I got to tell you, the Rebbe's message is all over Israel. Everyone knows about the Rebbe's message. And thanks to GEM, people have heard time and again. GEM is the Jewish educational media. By Chabad, the various videos of the Rebbe, people are thirsty, literally, to hear the Rebbe's opinion. And this revival, they say, is unparalleled. And although they had a revival immediately after the 6-Day War, but they all say you can't compare it to what is going on today. One of the beautiful things we know about Yiddishkeit is that people always say, especially religious people, Baruch Hashem, thank God, Be'ezrat Hashem. We met hundreds of people, soldiers that are not necessarily religious. Be'ezrat Hashem, with the help of God, we will win. Everything in Hebrew, obviously. We can have Yeshuat Hashem, Be'ezrat HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I mean, unbelievable outpour of religious feelings, which is, for us coming from the United States and seeing this like all over our country. We've seen it with civilians, we've seen it with soldiers, with politicians. It's an unbelievable feeling. And therefore, the resilience of the people, the determination of the people, although the country is in pain, it is a country in pain, but at the same time, the determination is there, the emunah, the faith is there fully, and it's a tremendous feeling. And I'm going to tell you, we were so emotional about this. So this is generally what is going on in Israel. I want to give you some of the details and you'll understand the emotional roller coaster we went through from the moment we landed. About an hour and a half after we landed, which we had the morning prayer service, that was last week, Monday morning, and we immediately went to a hotel somewhere near Netanya, where they housed the residents or whatever was left from the community of Kfar Aza. Aza is a little kibbutz, a settlement, which is very close to the Gazan border. And unfortunately, from the 700 residents in that kibbutz, they talk about 75 today. They talk about 75 that were brutally murdered in the kibbutz. Another 50 are either missing or were taken to Gaza as prisoners. And so many people were sitting shiva when we were there last week. And so what they did was the people couldn't stay in this Kfar Aza kibbutz settlement simply because the place was literally destroyed. The terrorists came in there and, I mean, apart from murdering the people, but they basically went from house to house and literally destroyed and burnt down the whole Kfar. So there's no way, obviously there's some that were not destroyed, but they couldn't go back there because they had to identify bodies and parts, and without going into all the gory details, no one was allowed back in. So they took all the residents, and whoever didn't have family, they took them to this hotel in Netanya, and which is a very large hotel. They have about 300 beds or 300 rooms, and they were occupying the whole hotel. It was paid for, obviously, by the Memshala, by the government. And in back of the hotel, which there was some greenery over there of about 2-3 acres, and everyone who was sitting shiva had either a little tent or a table and chairs, and people came to be Menachem Oval to comfort them as we comfort mourners. And I can tell you that we went from table to table. I don't want to get into what we heard. It was an incredible emotional roller coaster. Children lost parents, parents lost children. Little children were sitting in a daze looking up like there's no tomorrow, or what are we going to do? You know, on Shabbos, Rabbi Eli Benjamin asked me, Rabbi Wolf, what did you learn from the trip? And I said, I learned the power of a hug. What do you say to these people? How do you comfort them? Know what to say. Because whatever we would say would have been too little or perhaps inappropriate. And of course, you say the traditional Hamokim Yinachem Eschem, that we had to say something and we couldn't say anything. The only thing we were able to do is give them a hug. But that hug said so much because they were really waiting for that. We didn't have to say anything. So one of the things we learned is the power of the hug. From there, which we spent about 2.5 hours over there, we ended up going to Holon, which was a base of soldiers. And that base of soldiers, their expertise was in search and rescue. We all know what search and rescue is. When unfortunately, what they had, the tragedy in Miami 2 years ago, even Israel sent a big team over there, search and rescue, and various places in the world, when there's a hurricane, there's an earthquake, or there's some type of tragedy when people are involved, unfortunately, and buried in who knows what, Israel usually are the ones that send a very qualified team. So this army base was like the headquarters of search and rescue. So we spoke to a fellow who actually, he was born in France, moved to the United States, and then made Aliyah to Israel about 20 years ago. He was a guy in his, I would say, late 40s. He spoke to us in English. He spoke Hebrew, English, French. And he said he's been everywhere in the world. He was the head of that whole army base. So we had a little meeting with him. And he said, I have been everywhere in the world, even in Miami. But he says, I have to tell you that what
the condominium collapse in Miami.
Correct.
Yeah.
The carnage, the brutality of what we witnessed in Gaza, in all over the border, he said it was unlike anything he had ever seen before. Because the brutality, and I don't want to go into again all the details, gory details, but he said, never ever. And he said, as much as he's accustomed to this, he had to keep on taking like a day or two off and have the troops under him work because he just couldn't take what he saw. So we were there listening to him and speaking, and of course, putting on tefillin with the soldiers over there. Wherever we went, if there are people that didn't put on tefillin, we put on tefillin with them, and so on and so forth. But that search and rescue team is an incredible team, and they work hard, and after they're done, they have to go for therapy, and there's a lot of trauma that goes into their work. The next thing on the list, they told us that they had an appointment for us in Tel Aviv at the Hostage Command Center. Now, that Hostage Command Center was started immediately, even, I think it was like on Simchas Torah, on Sunday, when we knew already that so many people, we didn't know how many yet. At first, we thought it's 100, then it was 120, 150. Today, I hear it's up to 240. But when we were there, it was like just a week ago. They were talking about 130, 133, 140. So they started with 2 volunteers from the families of 2 hostages. And immediately with social media, it turned into a community. And only relatives of the ones that were taken hostages, and they finally received from some donor or whatever, somebody who owns a office building in Tel Aviv, and he gave them a full floor. So when we came there, it was very interesting what was going on. You had offices. You had an office from the Red Cross. You had an office from the military, from the Tzahal. You had an office from the health department. You had an office for PR, people that specialized in PR. And then you had an office, several offices of volunteers, but volunteers with certain specialties. Technology, or people that are medical specialists. The greatest task at the time was to keeping track, because there were constantly news of additional hostages that the government found out they were missing, and witnesses came along, or people heard from various telephone conversations that they were there. So apart from listening to the gut-wrenching reports of what parents were saying, what they heard on their phones from their children crying and screaming and whispering, and the bullets that were flying, and the machine guns, and I mean, it was unbelievable to hear all that. But the main purpose of bringing us there was for us, to see what is going on, to understand the severity of the situation. And they gave us a typical example. They took us into the medical room over there. What was the medical room doing? they had to contact every one of the families, and every hour there was another family, to find out if these hostages are hostages that require medical care. What are the medications they're taking? Don't forget, they came there without any medications, with their shirt on their back, if they had a shirt left. And they needed medication. Their medical history had to be taken down and recorded. And then they were working side by side with the Red Cross to make sure, hoping that the Red Cross will have an accurate list of the medical conditions of these hostages, and they'd be able, hopefully, to contact somebody in the Arab world, because they couldn't contact anyone from Gaza that is involved with Hamas, but they thought the various other countries that they can submit the information. So anyway, so we saw what is going on, and then we had a meeting, all 28 of us. They had a very large conference room. There were about 60, 70 people in the room. They literally appealed to us that, there's a war going on and people are glued to their TVs or to their internets in the United States and the world over, watching what's going on with the war. But their main concern was that the plight of the hostages and their conditions, little that they did know, is not getting out there to the broader world. And they were begging us. They gave us some pictures and posters. Now it's all over the place, to make sure wherever we go, we speak to the politicians, we speak to the mayors of our towns, even these little politicians that are not necessarily senators or congressmen in Washington, but they may be state congressmen or state senators, or even just a mayor in a little town. It has to be front and center in everyone's attention. So that was our purpose of being there, giving us information and giving us email addresses, who we can contact if we know anything, or if we need somebody that should speak, and so on. We concluded the visit with a tremendous outpour of the song Achenu and various songs, Animamin, that we sang together. A lot of tears were flowing there. The following day, one of the two trips that we took that literally stand out. One of them is Sderot. Sderot, and I'm soon going to show you a video of what is going on over there. Sderot is a town usually that has like 35,000 people. When we arrived in Sderot, with security and so on, because that place constantly has sirens going off, and usually people don't travel today to Sderot. The place is a ghost town. You can't find, we drove through the streets, you can't find anybody in those streets. The 5,000 people that are left, they're elderly people. Some Chabad Shluchim are there. And you have people that just refuse to leave because they're scared of their homes being ransacked, looted, or whatnot. So there are 5,000 people left. They're literally locked out from the outside world. Stores are closed because either they left town or they're at the front. So where do you get food? So the Chabad house became the supermarket, the pharmacy, the fruit store, and everything you can think of you need to get by, even toilet paper and tissues and whatnot. Just to give you a bit of a taste of what goes on there, I'm going to show you a video. What you are seeing here is Chabad of Sderot. the only location in town that you can get food, the only location in town that you can get medicine. 80% of the inhabitants of this town have left the city. The homes, the streets are totally deserted. It's like a deadly quiet in the city. But everything that you're seeing here is at Chabad of Sderot. Simply, people need food, they come over here. They have literally distributed thousands and thousands of tons of food since the beginning. They keep on refilling. People come pick up food, quietly run away back into their homes, and so on and so forth. We have people working over here, all volunteers, as you can see over here. Volunteers coming in and trying to help out. Boxes and boxes of food and whatnot, stipends. Okay, just giving you a bit of a taste of what is going on. From the Chabad house, which other than signs of bullets going through the walls, the outside walls, what we did after visiting the Chabad house, and the shluchim there all have bulletproof vests and helmets and whatnot when they go outdoors. They literally have to deliver food sometimes to elderly people who are scared to walk out of their home. So there's a tremendous amount of chesed going on there. And while we were there, we felt that we have to participate. We all came with approximately $10,000. That's the maximum in cash. We also had credit cards, of course. And right then and there, within 2 minutes, we raised about $27,000. Most of it, if not all of it, was in cash. And we gave it to them. And the reason why they need so much cash is because to get a truckload, a semi-trailer with provisions from the center of the country to travel to Sderot, you can't get anyone who wants to travel there. So what the shluchim have to do is pay a driver $1,000 cash, $2,000 cash to get him to agree to even take that trip from the center of the country and pile up with provisions and get it out there. And the shluchim there, whatever you saw over there, within a day or two, it all goes. And they have to keep on replenishing the provisions. But from there, they took us to, it was about, I would say everything there goes in meters, about 100 meters away, you have the police station. And you also have the media center, they call it, which is also like the city hall, the media center, and whatnot. And that is about 20 yards away from the police station. Now, if you recall hearing the news at the time, the terrorists, their first place they came to was the police station. And unfortunately, they killed everyone who they found there. But the people who are going to be employed at the media center, which usually come in there at 7 o'clock, they usually, if they have a problem in the media center and they want a better safe room, as you call it, they run to the police station, not knowing exactly what's going on. And they heard these the sirens go off. They ran to the police station. But little did they know that the longer they stayed there, the terrorists were around the corner and they're going to kill them. And that's what happened, unfortunately. And a woman who was working there, the head of the media center, told us, I want to tell you about the miracle I had. She said, I am Shomer Shabbat. Now I observe Shabbat. So that morning, I usually go there every morning, first thing in the morning. And if I would have been there, I would have gone straight to the police station and used their safe room. And she says, thank God I didn't. I was going to go to shul. And that saved my life. And she told us right then and there, yes, I'm Shomer Shabbat, but I can do much better with being Shomer Shabbat. And I promised myself right then and there, she said, that I'm going to be 100% Shomer Shabbat going forward. And that's what we heard so often, people taking on the mitzvah of tefillin, people taking on lighting Shabbat candles, and so on and so forth. Rabbi, I see
we're enthralled. Everybody is hanging on your every word. Can you stay a minute or two if somebody maybe has a brief question? We want to be respectful of your time. We really appreciate it. It's heart-wrenching, and we're gobbling up all the information and how you were able to continue going day after day after day. To sad story after sad story is just itself an inspiration, and I'm sure the people there felt that they were being cared about, that this wasn't just something that people were doing in a detached way generously, but to be there in person, and like you talked about, the power of the hug must have been so meaningful. If anybody has a quick question, you want to unmute yourself, we really want to be respectful of the rabbi's time. We've already gone longer than we anticipated, but if someone has a brief question, you want to jump in. Otherwise, we'll let Rabbi Wolf go. You must be emotionally exhausted, physically exhausted from this journey, and the encouragement you bring to the people there and sharing it with us to hear it firsthand, and the horrors of it, and also the encouragement, as you talked about, the light that comes out of the darkness has been meaningful. So thank you.
Shalom, and thank you very much for sharing your experience. I have a small question. First, what prompted you to go? You could just send those duffel bags by courier. And did you experience any one of those red flag sirens? And how did you deal with it?
Good question. The first time we experienced that, we were scared. We were driving on a highway, and we had these apps, which if there is a rocket attack within the mile of where we are, immediately get the beeping and the sirens go on, and immediately the driver stopped the bus, and we jumped out and we ran to the other side. I think I have a video of it, so please hold on if you want to see how it looks when you have to do something of that nature. Hold on, I got to get rid of this. But let me see if I still have it somewhere.
And what prompted you to accompany those duffel bags with all the equipment into Israel?
No, not this one. Well, the reason why we went along, let me stop this for a second. The reason why we went along was we felt that when our brothers and sisters in Israel are in trouble, the magnitude of the attack and the pain that they suffered, when your brother and sister is in pain, regardless where they are, you fly there, you show your solidarity, you comfort them, and you do whatever you can to help them. But when you're on the other side of the world, you don't really get a good reading of what is really going on. So we felt we have to be there for them. We're one family, we're one people.
All right. If anyone else wants to jump in, otherwise we're going to say goodnight to Rabbi Wolf and thank him for his time and for representing the entire Chicago community and bringing this to them, to eretz Yisroel. Thank you. Yeah. And Yasher Koach to you, and Hashem should comfort the mourners, heal the injured, and return the captive safely. And we'll have you back to speak about more joyous and happy things. But thank you for bringing this firsthand experience to us. Yeah. And Am Yisrael Chai.
Amen. Rabbi Wolf, I've been looking at emails every day, and I think there are a lot of other people who have been looking at them every day. It means a great deal to get them. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. All the best.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Russ. Good night, Russ. Wow.
Good evening.